afternoon, Patrick. How are you?
I'm doing well. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to come on the Q.A.C team podcast this afternoon. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and get started and tell our audience more about who you are and what you do.
Hey, my name is Patrick Letts, and I'm the owner of Crab Kicker Soccer. We are a youth soccer program that starts from 18 months up to 12 years old. So we do mommy and me, then groups of 3 or 4 year olds, 5, 6, 7, 9, and so on. Um, we do one thing I guess is unique from us or different versus like rec soccer or club soccer is that we're a once a week program, so the parents can pick, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, whatever fits their schedule. They pick that day and time, and they do that for 8 weeks and 8 weeks for that season. We do a spring, summer, winter, fall program, and they get to pick that once a week, one time. They know exactly where they're going to be. They're going to be in the same location every week, unless there's bad weather. Then we try to go inside if we can, so that changes. But we try to stay consistent, so that helps. Where versus like rec or club, where there's like 2 or 3 nights a week of practice, games all weekends. The parents can participate, where to get their kids their little soccer fix, and then still do other things.
Yeah. Love it. Love it. That's why I'm glad I had you come on and interview because I think this is pretty cool. My oldest daughter, when she was young, she played soccer for a year and she was really good at it, but she didn't like it because the coach made all the difference in the world. He just wasn't a good coach and she didn't want to play again, you know?
Yeah. And that makes a huge difference. I coached club soccer. I coached in high school, and I even coached in college for a couple years. And now I just do crab kickers. I'm done with all that stuff, all the drama, all that extra. But yeah, coaches can make a big impact. Where,
Yeah.
especially with our younger group, like our mommy and me, 3 and 4s, 5 and 6s. Most of our like some of our best coaches have never played soccer. They're just really good with kids because we give the coaches like a curriculum to follow. Our coaching director Jen, she'll train the coaches, give them tips. She sends out like weekly emails like, hey, this is what you could do this week, or this is some things, maybe tweak this or tweak that. But we try to keep it where each week is a theme. Like one week could be like under the sea theme. So the games they play are geared towards that, and it's fun. They don't and there's no game. So typically like our 18 months, the 18 months to 2 year olds is our mommy and me, daddy two program. So their parents with them. So we don't scrimmage a lot, but we try to have them have a ball at their feet most times. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Usually they're just grabbing the cones and playing, but we try to keep it fun and light, so they're having fun and they're interacting. We also buy really like the size one soccer balls, the real small balls for them because we like
Nice.
small feet, small ball, and try to have that do that. And then typically like our older age groups, we try to have like some more experienced coaches, like with teaching them like the finer points of like the different skills. So our older kids are more like clinics, but they from 5, 6, the 5, 6 year olds through the 12 year olds, they'll do at the end the last 10 to 15 minutes, they'll scrimmage amongst the group. So they're doing like what they're doing throughout the class, and then they're scrimmaging a little bit at the end. So they're getting a little bit of game, but it's all in like that same location. Like I said, parents just show up. We actually have a couple kids that have signed up multiple days because they like the program. And we also have some kids that probably should be playing like club soccer, but the parents are just like, no, we like this once a week because we can do other things and other activities. And
Thanks.
yeah,
It's all about timing, right? Yeah.
yeah,
Everybody is so busy nowadays,
yeah.
it's crazy. Yeah. So tell the audience a little more about why you decided to be a business owner. What drove
Um,
you?
because I don't know if I wanted to work for anybody else, even though I probably work more hours now than I did because um, when I got out of high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I went to Essex Community College and I played soccer there the first semester, and my grades were horrible. I was close to dropping out of college, but then I'm like, let me take a few history classes. So then I was like, oh, I'll go be a teacher. And then when I transferred to Towson University, they had a sports management program. So I got involved in that. And when I graduated, I had a job with DC United in Major League Soccer. And I
Oh,
worked for
wow.
them. Yeah, I worked for them from 2006 to 2008. Loved the job. But there was a team, club that was starting in Baltimore, lower level professional team. And I'm like, oh, let me take a chance with that. It didn't work out. But at that point, I didn't want to drive back down to DC, living in Baltimore. So I did a career changer program of teaching and got into teaching. And I'm like, I don't know. It wasn't for me. So I was like, what can I do to get back into soccer and get something. And then that's where it was I was out with one of my buddies, and he's like, "What about little kid soccer?" He's like, they have rec programs, but what about like once a week programs where parents just come? I'm like, that's a really good idea. So I actually sort of stole, I took it from a friend and did that. And originally we were called Mighty Kicks, but
Okay.
we changed the name. This was probably about 2015 when we changed, and I changed the name to Crab Kickers because that same buddy we were out there, and I'm like, I want to do something like Maryland theme, and like what, and then like something the kickers, and then we're like, oh, the crab. So then each of our age groups actually have a different name. Like our mommy and me are the soft shell crabs. Then the blue crabs are 3 and 4. The 5 and 6s are the steam crabs, and then the older groups are the king crabs.
That's so clever. It's awesome.
Yeah. But yeah, but then I guess long story short, the main reason, I guess I don't know if I could, I didn't want to work for anybody. I guess I wanted to be my own boss, and I granted like I work various hours. Some days I'll work in the middle of the night. Some it's like it's very random based on like some programs we have going on. Besides the coaching aspect, the coaching those times, everything else is basically as long as work's getting done, then it's good.
Right. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. So my next question, I think, ties a little bit about what you talked about. Why did you choose this industry? So I'm guessing your background was more of you grew up playing soccer, and
I
that's
grew up
what
playing.
drove you
So
to
I
this.
yeah, the my mom likes to tell the story about when I got started in soccer. Like she had to drag me kicking and screaming down the hill to go play because I didn't want to play. So she would drag me to go play, and then I caught the soccer bug, and I've done soccer's been pretty much my whole life. Growing up, I grew up playing in Overly Rec soccer, played some club soccer, played at Overly High School, Essex Community College, and got my first like professional job was DC United. So it was always soccer. Soccer's always on TV or going to games or things like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I played when I was younger, I played outdoor soccer for a little while. And then I actually hurt my back. Then we transitioned to indoor soccer. I never got a chance to play not a play of indoor soccer because my back was injured the whole time. So I loved outdoor soccer. It was really, really, really good. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about some of the challenges that you're faced with when you first started this and how things go. And I'd love to
Um,
hear some of the things that are tough.
Yeah, I think the toughest part was, I guess, there was a lot of people doubting that this could be successful because in Baltimore it's a soccer hotbed for rec programs and
Right.
club programs, and they're like,
Yeah.
is there a need? Is there another need for another soccer program that parents can go to rec or club? And I really wanted to prove them wrong, and we started out with at that time when I first started I was teaching at Patapsco High School in Dundalk, and so I was also coaching the soccer team there. And I'm like, oh, maybe I'll start the program down here and maybe in a few years build it up where kids are feeding into the soccer program there. So the first season, we had two groups. One group had 4 kids, the other one had 3. And I'm like, I was even sort of like, oh, is this going to work? Is this going to be successful? And then the next season, we added a third group. And then it was suggested, oh, do something in another area, Perry Hall, which is a big area for us. So we actually got away from the Dundalk area for a few years. Now we're back, but Perry Hall and Bel Air in Harford County are our 2 biggest areas. But we have programs in 20 different locations. We either partner with like a school or a church or like a VFW or American Legion that has grass space, and we run
Mhm.
programs there. Like in like we even do out like the Eastern Shore. We do Salisbury, Easton, Cambridge, and all 3 locations are VFW halls that have grass space that allow us to use that. And everywhere else is either like a school field or like a church that has a field. And
That's
so
very cool.
that was, I guess that was another when we were first starting, is getting those relationships built, being a new business. Like, oh, are you going to treat our facility with respect? And over that time, those relationships have developed where um, usually the one church we use up in Bel Air, they'll reach out to me like, hey, we're doing our schedule for the entire year next year. Like, what days do you want? And I send them a list, and I usually get first dib, which is pretty cool. But
That's very cool.
I'd say that back starting that up was just that, I guess, getting the name out there, getting the word out there, and getting parents to trust the program and having
Yeah.
fun, and it's grown. Like I said, we were mainly in like Perry Hall, Parkville, Kingsville, and Dundalk for the first few years, and then in 2018 we went to Bel Air, and that was successful, and that grew, and now we've added Aberdeen, Havre de Grace, and then this spring a new location we're going to be in Elkton, and
Cool. Yeah.
and and that's great because like when COVID first hit, we were coming out of, I remember that February right before COVID shut everything down. I was actually at Five and Below because that's where I get a lot of the size one soccer balls. I was there getting some of the soccer balls, and the parents saw my crab kicker shirt and they're like, "Oh, what's that?" And I talked to them, gave them flyers, and I was like, "Oh, excited!" I was like, "Oh, this spring is going to be." It was on track to be our best spring up till that point, and then COVID hit, and it was
COVID
like,
hit.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it was, and luckily, I'm really appreciative of some of the parents because a good amount wanted refunds back, which was understandable, and
Sure.
a decent amount were like, "Hey, just hold it till spring or fall. We know we'll get out of this. Like when we go back, we want to come back." So that really helped get through those few months there because up until that was supposed to be my last year teaching. I was getting ready to leave teaching this after the 1920 school year, and then when COVID hit, they weren't sure. It was like first week of May, and my principal was like, "I need to know, are you coming back or not?" I'm like, "I don't know." And she's like, "Well, sleep on it. If you are going to come back, just let me know tomorrow." So I told her, "Yeah, I'll come back. I'll come back for one more school, at least one more school year." And then like 2 days later, Governor Hogan like lifted the youth sports ban. I'm like, "Oh, I figured," but it was good. I taught for one more year, grew the programs a little bit more, and then that then we grew. Like once COVID came out, that's when we grew, and people were like, "Oh, bring our program here, bring a program here." And we've tried some locations that we're open. If we can find a field, we'll try to see if a program will work in some areas. And
That works. Yeah.
there's been some areas where we've run a program one season, it's been really good, the next season is not, the registrations aren't good, and it goes back and forth. So we tried to cut out to where if we use a location, we're going to have it go like all 4 seasons. That way
Yeah.
it stays that consistent. And also with hopefully our coaches, that way we can keep them consistent too. Instead of like, "Oh, we got you for spring, but oh, we don't need you for summer, and then we need you again for fall," and it's that choppiness.
Yeah, it makes sense, right? Consistency is key in anything, right? Yeah, we look for consistency. Yeah. Yeah. So I see you do 18 months up to 12 years. So I gotta ask you, man, out of 18 months, how does that work, man? That's gotta be a challenge.
To tell you the truth, that's probably my most favorite group to coach is that mommy and me, because it's one thing that's different from that group versus even the 3 and 4s and above is the mommy and me, we try to stay consistent. Like the first 5 minutes is like free play where they can run around, kick the ball, throw them around, kick them in the goals, and then they do their warm up, and we do like a little bit of try to get them to do a little bit of ball skills, and then they do like a passing with a parent. We get out some hoops, and then they create tunnels and things like that. Then they play like different games based on the curriculum, and they always finish with hop and score, which they love. But with the mommy and me, it's the key is just stay consistent each week. So like I said, like probably the Mommy and Me program is about 45 minutes long. So I'd say 30 of the 45 minutes are the exact same every week, no matter what.
Oh,
It's
wow.
the same. So that way, if a parent's running late, they know like if they come in, they're like, "Oh, we know we're at this spot." Um,
Right.
and and it's a good experience for coaches because they can handle, if you can handle the mommy and me, you can handle the other, because some weeks and we also try to stress to the parents that like, hey, if your kid's crying and screaming, doesn't want to do it this week, next week will be different, because we always find that like one week if a kid's screaming, the next week they're all into it, or vice versa. If a kid's into it the first week, the second week they're those screaming, crying, don't want to do it, and it's and
Yeah.
it's it's that's why we usually have like about 12 kids in that group, because usually there's 3 or 4 kids that'll be a little upset, or they'll try that, maybe they just woke up from
Mhm.
a nap, or they didn't get their nap that day, and it can be, it's like organized chaos.
Organized chaos, right? That's awesome. Yeah, that was the one thing when I looked at your age groups, I'm like, I wonder how that works because they're barely walking at that stage,
Yeah,
and I can only imagine how it is to ground together and get them to actually follow directions, right? So when you say it's mommy and me, that sounds like
yeah,
it's really, really fun and
yeah.
exciting.
Yeah, so it's more like it's talking to the parents and the kids, and like we have one game that the kids like a lot, where we throw out all the cones, and they gotta the goal is for them to kick the ball to the little cones, pick it up and put it on the big cones. But we always tell the parents like, "Hey, the goal is to do this, but if they just grab it with their hands, it's fine." And then you'll see some kids trying to kick it, but then they end up just grabbing the cone, taking it, and grabbing another cone. Because because then, and we always tell the stress the parents like, hey, the goal is to use the ball, but as long as they're active, like even if they're not using the ball, let them enjoy it and have fun. Because
Right.
some, and in any walks, like you'll have some parents that like get upset because their kids aren't kicking the ball every time. But I'm like, at that age, like they won't like now if they're like 5, 6, 7, 9 and they're not doing it, then then you get upset. But the most part, it's a lot of fun, and the key is as long as the kids and the parents leave happy, then we did our
Right.
job.
Yeah. So another question I thought about, at what age do you normally see talent? Like you see
Um,
a kid come to there and you're like, this kid has it. This kid is going to go somewhere with soccer.
that Sometimes you can see it at 5 and 6, but then there's some kids where at 5 and 6 are scared of the ball or scared to do anything, and then a couple years
Yeah.
later they're really good. So it's hard to judge because sometimes those kids that are really good at 5 and 6 may not be the best players when they're 11, 12, 13. Whereas
Right.
maybe some of those kids that aren't really good at 5, 6, 7, 8 become really good because they're working at it and working at it, and they're just not coordinated or growing into the body. So that's
Yeah.
that's always a tough one to see. But we do when we do see some kids or a coach calls me and it's like, hey Pat, I have this one kid. He's really good. He's head and shoulders above everybody else. We'll usually send an email to the parent like, hey, have you considered looking at club soccer? And some
Yeah.
parents some parents are like, no, we don't really want to do club soccer because we like this once a week program. We don't want to do the 2, 3 nights a week and then the entire weekends wasted or games constantly. They like this because they're able to do other things. So we've had some talented kids come through the program that were definitely should have been club soccer if that was what the parents wanted. But I mean, I guess luckily for us that they liked our program that they kept signing up for us.
Yeah. Now, do you have any kids that, let's say you see they have talent, do you put them to another organization to where they can take their skills to another level, like a
We
farm team kind of, or is it something
well,
that it's beyond you?
well, usually what we'll do, like if a parent does come to us and they ask, they're like, what are our next steps? Because sometimes because we used to up until I want to say it was probably coming out of COVID because I don't think we did. I think we used to end at 6 years old. We used to do 5 and 6, and then 6 year olds they would go in the club or rec. But we had so many kids from 5 and 6 year olds, they'd go to rec and they were reaching back out to us like, oh, we didn't really like this. Can we, is there any way we can do an older program? So we started doing the 7, 9s. But if a parent does reach out to us and they're like, what are our next steps? Because we feel like our kid is outgrown crab kickers. Then I usually ask them a couple questions of like, what are you looking for in your next step? Are you looking for serious soccer? How many nights a week are you looking for? Are you okay with traveling a lot? What's your budget? Because I used to coach club soccer, so I know a lot of the directors from the local clubs, and I try to point parents based on what they're comfortable with or what they're looking for like I'll try to give them like 2 or 3 options. That way they can go to tryouts for those 2 or 3 clubs, see if they fit with them. And we've had a couple clubs that we've talked to about possibly partnering and then being a feeder program. But the most part, we've tried to stay away from that because we just don't want to get in that like drama of like, if there might be some parents that are part of a different club that we don't partner with, and they're like, oh, well, we don't want to do crab kickers anymore because they're partnered with them. So it's one of
Gotcha.
those ones where if we do something, like it's got to be beneficial for both programs. It would have to probably be a club that is in the area of all our programs. So it could be just like one
Gotcha.
big partnership and the idea I feel like for that would be we would feed their club and then maybe kids that go to their tryouts that maybe aren't ready for club, but they would still like to keep an eye on, they could send them to us and they could do the crab kickers program. And then also like maybe they're older players that are like in high school or getting ready to go to college. That we could hire them as coaches, like make that a priority. We hire them as coaches because our schedule works really well with kids or parents or anything that are involved in soccer or other sports because of the timing of what when our programs are.
Right. Yeah, very cool. So what are your expectations for your business the next year or two? What are you
Um,
hoping to accomplish?
I'm hoping right now we're doing after school programs as well. That's another thing I forgot to mention. We do after school programs. So we work with Baltimore County Public Schools, and we do. We have about I say we're probably 13 or 14 schools right now, but we're at our limit. There's a certain dollar limit in contracts that you can do until you have to
Gotcha.
apply for this thing when it opens. special contract that the board approves that we just submitted for that. So we'll hear in April. So my goal, hopefully, my vision in the next year or two is hopefully we get that contract because we have about 21 other schools that have reached out that want us to come to their school, but we have to wait till
Wow.
we get approved. So if we get approved of that, then we can grow our after school programs. And we just submitted. We had a conversation with Harford County Public Schools, and we just submitted an application to be their partner for their after school
Cool.
programs. And so they just reached out earlier today and said that they received it, that they'll set up an in-person meeting so we can discuss like the finer points and then go from there. So that those two things, hopefully that'll come down the pike. And then because right now I have besides myself, there's one full-time employee, and we have another one coming on in June when he's done school. And hopefully with getting those after school contracts, we can add like 2 or 3 more full-time people to expand a little bit into Maryland and more spaces in Maryland. But then we also have parents from like Southern Pennsylvania and Delaware, like, oh, can you come out to our area? So then that's another part of the equation is do we keep expanding, or do we franchise? Do we license? Do we hire directors in those areas? So it's like it's tough to decide like which route to go.
Yeah, you got some decisions to make here.
Yeah,
But it's good that you have those types of decisions, right? Because you're growing
yeah.
and the program is sustaining. So that's awesome. And congrats to you.
Thank you.
So that's awesome. So good. So now how do we contact you? I see I love the backdrop there, the crabkickers.com. I see the website. It's great logo. It's pretty cool.
Tell you, I almost forgot about this. I was in storage the other day grabbing shirts and medals for a school that was wrapping up, and I'm like, hold on, we have a banner here. Let me get this out and put it together. So I was like, I probably had this for 2 or 3 years, and just this is probably the first time I've used it.
That's
But
awesome. Great use. Great use
yeah,
of it. I love it.
yeah. So the website's crabkickers.com. My email is crabkickers1@gmail.com, and then parents can call or text me at 410-302-3613.
Awesome. Awesome. I love it. Patrick, again, thanks for coming on the podcast, man. It's been a blast. I love the story. I think my favorite part was, about the 18 months old, because
Yeah.
that to me was the most intriguing. So how do you get those little fellas in line? You're right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's always a fun group.
Right. I love it. Again, Patrick, thanks again for coming on the Q.A.C. team podcast. Appreciate it. And we'll chat soon. Have a great rest of your day.
You too.
Thank you so much.
You've been listening to the Q.A.C. Team podcast with your host, Charles Luttrell. Connect with us on the web at QACteam.com, TikTok at Q.A.C. Team, Facebook and Instagram at QAC.team. Thanks for your support.